Hello, and welcome. I'm Robin,
And I'm Gil,
and this is Rockin' the Love.
and we are happy to be here today.
We're very excited to be here today. And this month we're celebrating Pride Month. Woohoo!
And we're celebrating it by knowing that Pride Month is just a symbol of how we extend that inclusiveness to everywhere and everyone and all things. So that's kind of how we're approaching it.
Yes. So we've been exploring it through different ways. We've had different guests. We started out the month with John Chastain and T.C. Curry. And unfortunately, if you go to that tape, you won't hear
Most
much.
of the show.
The sound had a problem, but it was a great show. So we're going to definitely have them back. And then what did we do? We had ourselves.
We had ourselves. We were on, and we talked about the importance of being proud. Yeah. Really, of that it's okay to be proud of ourselves, right?
Yeah, and really incorporating into our body. And what are you proud of? And we talked about, for me, like as a kid, I remember being proud of things, but like you, not so much as adults. You don't use that language.
No,
it's a different game.
It's like there's a taboo on being proud, and yet when we look at what pride really means, we're talking about the thing that everyone talks about, having self-esteem and valuing yourself and all of those things. So it's kind of interesting.
Yes.
How we nuance the words.
So we have a great guest today. We have one of our favorite guests today, Dr. Davina Kotulski. And we have some more guests coming up through the month that are going to be really interesting and exciting. We have Jeffrey Solomon, who's a performance artist, writer, teacher, and works with kids a lot around gay rights and things like that. And then we have Doug Myers, who is a chaplain and also coming to talk about the history of
a little bit about the history of Pride and where it's come from and where it is, and really to just look at what it means to what's required for people to feel included.
Yeah.
So something around that. That'll be an interesting show. He's a great guy, really great. So that's kind of what's coming up.
Yeah, that's what's coming up. But we want to get to today. So let's get through our stuff so we can get to Davina, because you've seen her here before and it was fabulous. And so it's going to be even more fabulouser.
Fabulouser.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's going to be the fabulousest.
Okay. So today's show is Who's Right? And I didn't spell it wrong. No, who's right? And the question is about who's right is more important, not who's right, as in what I normally say.
But before we get to that, it's time for, and here's the good news.
Okay.
Where we think of one good thing, at least one good thing that's happened during your week that you're excited about.
Do you have yours?
I do.
Okay, go.
I don't like to do mine first because then I think you're going to copy. But okay, all right. I am excited. The good thing in my week was that I received my emeritus certificate. What does that mean? It means that I have been a practitioner for 20 years plus. I'm actually on year 21, but it didn't mean it wasn't a big deal to me. I mean, I was like, I looked up and went, oh my God, 20 years. But like, then I started getting these pins and papers and I was like, wow, it's like a real thing. Like I all of a sudden felt like I was legal, like I could have my own doctor's office and put my degrees up now. So,
Yeah, you're going to be a doctor now.
Well, it's the value. But it's interesting. Like a piece of paper can make me feel that way. You know what I mean? Like I've done 20 years. I've got a 20-year plus body of work that says I've done a lot of good work. But I'm not thinking about that. But when I got a little paper with a sticker on it, I was like, oh, look at me go. So That was my good news. I mean, but it's just something to look at, right? Because we do that. We marginalize, and until someone else says, "Oh, good girl," and acknowledges the 20 years, we're like, oh well, no big deal. So big deal. And I'm just excited. I mean, if I was actually privileged enough to be on the cosmic prayer this week, which was another part of my good news, and just talking about the work and doing this work for 20 years, consciously as a practitioner, um, because I think we're all doing this work consciously or unconsciously, but we're all working towards our goals and making the world a better place. And but to do it consciously, like under these guidelines, and really look to prayer and things like that as my tools, as my secret weapons, as whatever it is. I'm mostly impressed because I don't like to conform to anything. So, so that I conformed to one thing for 20 years, I'm impressed with that. So that was my good news. And the other good news was our conversation, our talk.
Yeah.
We had a big talk. So
Big talk.
one of those, sit down, come to Jesus talks. So
And it was good.
or Buddha or Allah or whoever you go to. Go ahead.
Well, I'm wondering where my emeritus certificate is for being married. I'm just curious because I've hit 20 years.
Right here.
Oh, you're it?
I'm still here. That's it.
Woohoo!
That says it all.
That does say a lot. Wow. Yeah, good stuff.
So
I was thinking when you were talking about, doing the work, etc. I find it such a privilege to be able to see my life in a different way and to be around people and to be around a philosophy that challenges me to keep opening that up further and further. So along those lines, my good news is that I'm very excited to have officially been contracted into a new job, and we are going and actually having a little signing ceremony this weekend, and so that's exciting. So I'm going to be the spiritual director at Rio Grande Center for Spiritual Living in New Mexico, and I'm very excited. From what I hear, they're very excited, and we are going to have some fun. So it's going to be interesting. It's great news, terrifying, and exciting. So there you go.
You can't say terrifying and exciting because that takes us into a whole different show. We have to talk about. So that's a different topic.
Okay, it's not really terrifying. It's just a reality check of, wow, how do I feel about myself? How do I feel about my abilities? How do I feel about other people trusting me? How do I feel about all those things? And I guess that's really what I mean.
It's the piece of paper.
It's the piece of paper. It is. I graduated from ministerial school 14 years ago. And woohoo, somebody that time. Yeah, that was that time. And I, now I'm getting a piece of paper. I have a piece of paper sitting over there that's signed that says, "Hey, you're the real deal, and you're it." And and of course, I obviously have some of those thoughts about, gosh, they might find out who I really am, but I know that actually is true, and the reality is that is a good thing. They will find out who I am.
Yes.
And I will find out more of who I am. And they will find out more of who they are. And we will all do it together, and la, 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 la. We'll sing Kumbaya.
Kumbaya.
That's right.
That's funny. That's what I was going to say. All right. So we're going to take a break and just get whatever you need, because you're not going to want to leave the conversation when we come back with Davina Kotulski right here on New Thought Media Network. Hello, welcome back to Rockin' the Love. He's whispering to me to go. You go. God. I'm Robin,
And I'm Gil.
and we're here ready to welcome our guest today, who we are so excited about. So, our guest is Davina Kotulski, who is a licensed clinical psychologist. She's a sought after speaker, she's an award winning author. She has a thriving practice, therapy practice, and internationally, she coaches. Her practice is in California and in Portland. I just get those places.
Washington,
Washington. I get it.
the whole West Coast.
The whole West Coast.
There we
That's
go.
right.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
thanks to COVID, I am virtual and I can work with anybody on the West Coast.
there you go. She's you can find her right there on the West Coast. So you have been at the forefront of the LGBTQ community and marriage equality movement and all of that for a long, long, long time. We met you back in 2009,
hmm
and when we were talking about gay marriage and all of that, and so that introduction doesn't begin to cover all that she's done. She's written books. Everything will unfold in this conversation, though, I'm sure. So
I just want to chime in that Davina has been a real inspiration and a teacher for me because of her just authenticity in sharing and ability to um, not not make me wrong, but make me think. So thank you.
wow, that's
Thank you.
powerful.
Thanks for
That's pretty
saying
good,
that.
huh? You have trouble with that, don't you?
No. Yeah, right. Do you do workshops on that? If I can make him think sometimes. Wow.
Well,
No, but yeah, Davina is a very special person. I
Mhm.
mean, there's no arguing that.
So in some ways, I always think of meeting you, Davina, on the steps of the whatever building it was in downtown San Francisco,
City
singing
Hall.
songs and making sure that the reversal of Prop 8 didn't happen, or did
No, it
happen,
was
or whichever direction the
we
hell
were
that was.
Yeah, yeah, right. So thank you for that introduction, and especially, yeah, thank you for saying that it was an opportunity to think, and that I didn't make you wrong, and we're always growing and unfolding, and I think we all need to stop and think and take a look at some of our knee-jerk reactions and the ways we've been kind of socialized or indoctrinated or whatever, including all the ways that science of mind and new thought helps us to stop and think and really approach things in a different way. And that's what it gave me. And when I met you all, I had come out of many years of I was entrenched in activism, as you said, working for marriage equality. I'd written a book, Why You Should Give a Damn About Gay Marriage. And the point of that was to try to educate people about the 1,138 federal rights that straight couples had access to, but that LGBT couples did not have access to. And that was just at the federal level and not the hundreds of rights also that we were denied, and really help people see how marriage equality impacted every level of our lives and why we needed it. It was more than a piece of paper. But again, like you just said, pieces of paper can also be very valuable and very validating. So I'd been busy working on marriage equality, educating people, helping, learning myself why we needed this right, even though I knew it on an intuitive level and an equal rights level. It was really expanding and being able to explain it and talk to folks and help people see. But yeah, I met the two of you. I wandered into my first Science of Mind spiritual center literally right after Prop 8 passed, which was the right that took away same-sex marriage in California. We had been given that right, or affirmed that as a constitutional right by the California State Supreme Court. And then it went to the ballot, and it just barely passed, but it took away our right to have equal marriage access. And it was very depressing. And it was a moment where I had to stop and think about strategy because everyone was very angry about what happened. And during that campaign, there'd been a lot of yelling and screaming on both sides. And that was when I met the two of you, and I came into the Science of Mind at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. And I started to get introduced to the idea that if we want to make change, we have to, envision it first, and we want to find it on that spiritual level first, and that if there's too much reality in your reality, nothing can change. And I'd always been inspired by, Dr. Martin Luther King, by Mahatma Gandhi, and the notion of the love warrior and leading with love. And then Science of Mind, the New Thought spiritual tradition, really helped me figure out, oh, what would that look like? And I even remember, and I didn't know this at the time, but back in 2003, 6 years earlier, I was a part of something called the California Freedom to Marry Coalition. And Reverend Deborah Johnson, who I had no idea who she was at the time, now I know she's one of the founders of Agape Spiritual Center in LA, and she had her own community in Santa Cruz, very important spiritual minister. She had come to an event and done a visioning with us. Wow. I didn't know what a visioning was then. She did a visioning, and I remember in the visioning in 2003, I imagined a sort of a park where all ages, all sexual orientations, everybody was just hanging out together, and there was so much love. And I got, oh yeah, that's why the opposition says this would lead to the decline of Western civilization, because Western civilization isn't predicated on love and inclusivity. Mm-hmm. And this is about love and inclusivity. Years later, you and Robin, Gil, you and I, and many other folks, my former spouse, a bunch of people, like you said, the Joy Choir, we were down at San Francisco City Hall. We were singing songs about love and inclusivity. We were praying for a change, open hearts, coming from a place of love, staying in a place of love, even when people were screaming nasty things.
Oh, God.
That flash forward to 2015, the United States Supreme Court voted marriage is a civil constitutional law for a constitutional law. Civil marriage is a constitutional law for same-sex couples. That next day, I was in San Francisco, just happened to be up in San Francisco again. Great timing. I was at a Dolores Park in San Francisco. There were people of all ages, all sexual orientations, barbecuing, having a party, singing, playing music. It was literally, getting goosebumps as I say it. I almost cry. It was literally the embodiment of that vision in 2003. It was amazing. This spiritual work is amazing. So I'm going to pause there and let y'all jump in.
I think what I hear in that is the beauty of how the universe gives us hope, if you will, gives us the opportunity to know, and allows us to back off on trying to make things happen and to figure out really how to just keep moving toward what we know is true.
Yeah.
Because how beautiful that is. And sometimes I've had it with other things in my life too, where things show up and you're like, oh yeah, oh, I've seen this before. I've thought, oh, that's what this is. And I think that's really powerful. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
So, not to be a buzzkill. Mm-hmm. So fast forward to today.
Yeah.
And what the hell is going on? Why are we, what? I mean, I have all kinds of ideas and theories about what's gone on, but what do you think?
Yeah, well, I certainly see that we are experiencing, there's a pendulum swing. And, I think about the phrase, the the brighter the light, the bigger the bugs. And so, people are shining their light even more. People are coming out. There's more acceptance. And so, at the same time that that's happening, there is this backlash, this desire to kind of put people back in their closet, back in back in their place. And so, we are seeing some pretty upsetting responses of I'm going to say right wing, white nationalist organizations that have always been anti-LGBTQ. They hate gays and Jews and blacks and everybody. We're all kind of lumped in, and so letting those people go unchecked is dangerous to all of us. And so I just will very politically say that we have to, as a nation, address the white supremacist hate groups in this country. We need to follow them with the FBI. We need to treat them as the terrorist groups that they are, because they are trying to strike terror into the hearts of everyone, whether they show up at, ready to mob a group of people in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho at a pride event, or they storm through a library event with, drag queen story time in Alameda County. And, this stuff is coming up again. And so we really have to stand up and speak out against, these kinds of displays and, of violence and anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, and have our voices known, that we're safe places and that we support equality. I think that's really important.
What strikes me, and I think you're very familiar with, is that the rhetoric really has not changed over the years.
Right.
Regarding any group that we were trying to deny rights to.
Mm-hmm.
You can pull up old arguments against slavery, or for slavery rather, and for the Jim Crow laws and various things. And if you just substitute a couple of words, they're the exact same arguments that have been used for why there shouldn't be abortions, why there shouldn't be gay people, why
Mm-hmm.
it's the same stuff.
Right. Right.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And so, there's a couple of ways to keep moving forward on this. And one is to know that people that are under the influence of those arguments, kind of like Gandhi said, it's not that they're the enemy, it's the untruth is the enemy. Right. It is these belief systems that are the enemy. The people themselves are not the enemy. So, but we still at the same time have to have checks and balances so that they're not going and, hurting people. There needs to be consequences and responsibilities. At the same time, we want to keep trying to understand what's going on. What are you thinking? Why do you believe this? And approach that person who is under the influence of the untruth or the delusion of superiority, as Dr. King might say. They would, he talked about white superiority or white supremacy as a illness, as a delusion. And I would say heterosexual superiority or heterosuperiority is also an illusion or a delusion, and it's a belief that one sexual orientation is better or more godlike than another, as opposed to, LGBT, we're all the same. We love the same. We just maybe love people with different, or with the same body parts.
Yeah.
Well, I think I also think part of it is that well, obviously fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with gay rights and things, people don't know. Like every time somebody adds a letter,
Mm-hmm.
They're like, what's that? What does that mean?
Uh-huh.
And so then it's, it's gone from, just gay rights to, transgender and this and
Mm-hmm.
that. And what does that mean? And what is that? Who's a boy and who's a girl, and what she, he, they, and how do I even talk? How do I speak appropriately?
Yes.
So it's like, it's become a new learning, and some of it has made its way into the culture, like the she, he, they, how do you identify piece?
Pronouns.
And a lot of that's because of, I believe, because of, diversity work and the ethnicity work and the work that people were doing there. And so it's kind
Mhm.
of like that was kind of like a easy kind of inflow. But I mean, if you I mean, I live in a big city and I'm you know up to date on a lot of things, but I don't know if I lived in, I don't want to belittle anybody, but out in somewhere that doesn't get this kind of news or doesn't know, how do you know what you don't know?
Great question. So I'm going to speak to both sort of camps, so to speak. One is so okay, so the side that is quote unquote LGBTIQ plus like we have to know that we're constantly changing and clarifying and being more clear and direct about who we are and how to describe our experience, and that's really important. And even in the LGBTIQ plus community, I have to stay up on how things are changing because it's, you know, I'm sometimes it's folks that are younger, or sometimes it's coming from a certain academic community, these distinctions, and then they kind of spread out. So we all have to keep educating ourselves. And it was funny the other day, I asked my 10-year-old, is it this or is it this now? And he told me, and I'm assuming he identifies as straight, he's 10, but he knows some things now that because he's in another learning environment, it's coming up also through the young people.
Yes.
Now, older folks, whatever their sexual orientation might be or gender identity might be, sometimes the older we get, the more rigid we get about what we're going to say or not say, right? So it's like, well, I'm not going to say you use pronouns they and them. That's not grammatically correct, and I would never do that. Okay, well, why? Why are you so resistant? If it doesn't really hurt you, you're just changing. It makes you uncomfortable to use somebody's language. Well, somebody else is uncomfortable because they've had to identify with a particular sex or gender that they don't identify with, and people keep identifying them with it. That makes them uncomfortable, right? Or I'm not going to say I only need to say gay. It's like, okay, but then that excludes lesbian, bisexual, transgender, two-spirit, queer, questioning, and so maybe just be open to that. At the same time, I would encourage those people who are younger or, I'm going to jest a little bit and say more activist or militant, to be patient with people too. Like, we have to be patient with one another. If somebody has a hard time getting it, just don't give up on them. Gently remind them. Now, if somebody is intentionally misgendering, which means they're, you've let them know this is my gender, and they intentionally, if you say I identify as male and they keep calling you she and her, and they're doing it on purpose, even though your name is the gender you're telling them they are, and they're just doing it on purpose, that's intentionally misgendering, and that person is being rude and unkind. And then that needs to be addressed. But sometimes people forget, and we have to give a level of patience with them. And the same vein, if it's uncomfortable for you to use the pronouns or to remember to say LGBTIQ plus or include I for intersex, just try to keep growing, try to keep learning. Yeah, is it uncomfortable? Sure. But change is uncomfortable. And that doesn't mean you don't just ignore it, right? We have to keep growing, we have to keep learning. Dead naming is another thing that can happen within the transgender community, where somebody calls somebody by their old name, right? It can happen accidentally. Sometimes both of my brothers are cisgendered heterosexual males, as far as I know, but they've both changed their names. They both had like names that were a little cutesier when they were younger, and now they have their professional names. And sometimes people in or outside of the family will refer to them as those names. it really bothers them, you know? And I understand why it would bother them. It's not how they identify. But sometimes people make a mistake, or they haven't gotten the memo, or they haven't seen that person in that many years, so they still refer to those old names. So we have to not dead name people. And if you make a mistake, apologize. Don't make the other person wrong. Say, oh, I'm so sorry. I know your name is this now. I really apologize.
Yeah.
Well, I think you bring up a really good point, and that is that what people are asking for is nothing other than what everyone asks for all the time.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Call me by my name, recognize me for who I am,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. And we somehow try to make it different if we don't like or agree or understand where this other person's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's not exactly what you just said. It's not just a gay issue. It's a continued learning for all of us,
Mm-hmm.
as long as we're in this thing together. And I think that's so important, because we were having a conversation with a friend who is gay and has been gay and married for almost 20 years, and that he went to a workshop in order to learn more about transgender and all the other things, because you people assume because you're gay you have the answer to the rest of the questions,
Right.
and that's not necessarily true. I mean, it's the same with diversity.
Yeah, no, I remember when I first heard the word cisgendered, I'm like, what's that? What does that mean? And it's like suddenly it was there overnight. And I'm like, oh, I better get up on that.
Yeah.
We don't say sex change anymore. We say gender affirmation. We don't say sex reassignment. We don't even say gender reassignment anymore. We say gender affirmation.
There you go. I just learned something.
Right. It's constantly changing. And so it's like, again, I think the thing is, be patient with yourself and be patient with other people. Don't assume that they have had the education that you've had. Don't assume that they're being jerks. Just help explain. Oh, okay. Well, we're not changing somebody's sex or gender. We're affirming the gender that they have always been. Now they're just sharing it with you. Before they never shared it. So gender affirmation surgeries, gender affirmation treatment, that kind of thing. Another thing, that's part of our social skills, is we learn early on to say things like yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. And that kind of reaffirms a gender binary as well. And so finding other ways to be polite to folks, in our language, because we want to say, oh, thank you, sir, or thank you, ma'am. Those, especially in the South, those are, or depending how you're raised, that's the language that you say. But that can be very upsetting to people who don't identify as a sir or a ma'am, to get sirred or ma'amed.
Yeah.
So almost taking it out of the language. I mean, and then people are like, well, I like saying yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. And it's like, yeah. So what do we do with that? Do you become more mindful? Do you ask the person, hey, before you say yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, or do you take it out of your vocabulary?
Well, that's like with women. I know I was in a meeting yesterday, and I was like, you guys, blah, 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 blah. And I go, oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Right.
And they're like, it's okay. And one of them was like, it's fine. I'm from New York. I'm from the East Coast. My whole family says you guys. And I was like, okay. And then the other one gave me her reasons why it was okay. But it's like those things that have been ingrained all along. And it is such a new learning. And I just wanted to say the other thing about that is that, I work with little kids, and they're learning. And so as an adult who also has kids, it's like, yeah, sometimes you're not the authority. I have my kids sit down in a group, and usually the first day we say our name and our favorite ice cream or our favorite superhero or whatever. And I said, okay, let's say our name. And I paused, and one kid was like, and our pronouns. I was like, these are
Yeah.
6 and 7 year olds,
Yep.
5, 6, 7. And I was like, okay, and our pronouns, we went around and like, I'm she, her, I'm they, sometimes I'm she, sometimes I'm he. I was like, okay. But,
Mhm.
it was fascinating to go, okay, we're all right. We're in it. We're all in it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And that's something that the more we can do, in any sort of group environment, hi, can you say your name and what are your pronouns? So it comes out and you don't misgender somebody.
Yeah.
So
It also just raises the consciousness and gives space. It says, this is a safe space for me to, share who I am.
Yes.
Um, and again, before we didn't have this option. I moved to Washington. I got a new driver's license. I had the option of checking non-binary. You know, growing up, that language didn't exist. I didn't get to choose non-binary.
Wow.
I could show you a picture of what I looked like at 15, and I looked pretty much like this. And in my high school sophomore year, I'm wearing a tie and a suit. In my junior high school picture, I'm wearing a suit and a tie. So, I had the language. I knew what transsexual was. I don't even know if we had transgender back then. I knew what a sex change was. I thought I wanted one back then, and I might have, but we didn't have the language for transgender or non-binary. So that identity, that option to explain who we were, who I was, didn't exist. Now it
Yeah.
exists. Now my driver's license is non-binary. My Oregon State psychology license is non-binary. I can put that and explain this. This is who I am. It's an option.
It's
Um,
amazing.
it is, and it just wasn't there before. So young people are able to share that with you. I love this. My stepson, his fifth grade teacher, was graduated more recently from whatever education school than I, with her PhD. I've been out for about 20 years of the academic environment, and so she always started the day with, good morning, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. And so I learned that from my 10-year-old stepson. I love that, and it's like, oh, how did we get that in our language? Like, I need to remember that, because like instead of saying, hey guys, you can say, hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals, how are we doing today? Right?
That's so great. That's
that's
so
funny.
great. I want to welcome our rainbow circle hugging space cowboy Wayne from Calgary. It's good to see you out there, Wayne. And also Coach Constance
Yeah,
coming
it's a
to us
great
from
question.
Connecticut with a great question.
Yeah.
So she's asking, who is the we? How does one decide who decides the language? Who picked the word cisgender?
Right, and it's spelled CIS. And I have no idea who picked that word. I think it is literally a word in the dictionary that just, I would say Google it. I don't know where it came from, but it is meant to be um, when your gender and your sex are the same. How you see yourself gender wise matches how the culture defines how a person of that sex can express themselves.
Mm.
It is a fascinating question, though. I mean, do we start just do like groups just start to use the language, or how all of a sudden there's a Q, or there's like, why is it called one thing and not another? It is
Hmm.
fascinating.
Well, it is how it it works like that everywhere. You know, we don't in our circles hear Heavenly Father very often.
Hmm.
That is because people started looking for other ways to identify and began to understand, this power that was larger than us that may not really, look like us.
Hmm.
Right. And so there's that change, and so that was a whole cultural change, and it's still moving, and in some circles it's it's back 30, 40 years from where other circles are,
Right.
you know?
Right. We do mother, father, God, or spirit, or source, something agendered.
Yeah.
The other day, we went to the MCC church in Portland, just because, sometimes I like to go different places. And the Metropolitan Community Church, if you don't know, I'm not Christian. It is a Christian church that was founded by Reverend Troy Perry in 1969. He was an openly gay man, and it was the first openly gay inclusive church founded in Los Angeles in his home. There are now hundreds of MCC churches around the world. It's amazing. And they use the term heavenly parent. The
Mhm.
minister there used the term heavenly parent. And I was like, ooh, I like that. I've never heard the term heavenly parent. And I thought that was a great gender neutral way of describing that loving, paternal, if you're going to use that kind of word, uh, yeah, description of God or the
Mhm.
divine or spirit,
Mhm.
yeah.
But changes in our language and how we refer to people and what's acceptable, I believe it does start when people start saying, no, that's not okay,
Right.
because that's derogatory, or that's this, or that feels derogatory, or whatever it is.
Right. I mean, like, remember when we used to read books and everything was in the he pronoun, and it was just assumed that this applies to women too?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
What do you think,
Or
Robin?
every book you read, every Dick and Jane book was full of white people.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that you just assumed that was assumed that was the best way to depict people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's such a big learning. I mean, I'll admit we were at a conference, and someone was speaking who was transgender, and also talking about all of the things we've just been talking about, and being conscious of it. And she was saying that uh, when you come out to your congregation in the morning and you say, "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen," you know
Mhm.
you shouldn't say that, because people will feel left out and excluded.
Right.
And not I mean, I don't say welcome, ladies and gentlemen, anyway, but even I felt my whole body and my head go, oh God, I can't. Do I have to learn more? I mean, there is so much to be conscious and aware of and learn, and it is a big learning curve. It's a
Mhm.
big learning curve, and it's
It
a
is.
big shift, and it's a big investment in being who we came to be,
Mhm.
and standing for love, taking that stand for love, because
Yeah.
unfortunately, when you take a stand for love or anything, uh, tired and is not an option in my.
Well, or just honor your feeling of tired, or honor the part of you that's resistant, and then just go, okay, well, what kind of world do I want to live in? Do I want to live in a world that is super sexually segregated and racially segregated and preferences one view lens over another and tramples on the rights or beliefs or experiences of others? Not
Right.
really. Okay, cool. So then what can I say instead of ladies and gentlemen? How about, beloved community, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, she was even like, "Oh, just say welcome, y'all." I mean,
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah, it's not. It's what I mean. But I'm just saying. I think for a lot of people, it's exhausting, because they don't. First of all, they don't think they're going to be right, and they
Mhm,
don't know how they're going to get it, and
mhm.
it's just a lot. It's a lot of learning, and I think your advice is so important. Of if you do it wrong, just say you're sorry.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
how
again,
much
I would ask uh, LGBTIQ people, and I know it can feel like, oh my God, dealing with this crap all the time. It's unpleasant. Why can't these people learn? Why do I have to deal with this? I know it is hard. I want to acknowledge it. It's cringy, for lack of a better word. It can be
Yeah,
offensive and hurtful, and, like, you know, but try to be patient, loving, but also, hold the line. Hey, you know what? I know you didn't mean to say that, but it's kind of like back in the marriage equality days, right? People would constantly refer to my wife at the time as my girlfriend or my partner. After I say this is my wife, they would suddenly demote her to how's your girlfriend or your partner? And they didn't do that to anybody else's spouses, only same-sex people spouses. And I have
Right.
to say, are you aware of what you just said? What? I did that? Yeah, you did. So you need to look at your unconscious bias. Your unconscious bias is that same-sex couples can't be married, that LGBT people don't have this right, and you keep demoting us to partners and friends and roommates and girlfriends and boyfriends, and that's not okay. So you've got to really focus on that. You got to change that.
Yeah.
Now that we've had marriage equality for almost 7 years, I love it that people will refer to my girlfriend now of 7 years as my wife, and they'll assume that we're married.
Promoter.
That's great, because we have that right now, and so this is really good. And at some point, that will be the case, But it's just very interesting to see how it was back then, and the kind of like assumptions because gay people couldn't be married or shouldn't be married or whatever. So what would be projected onto that? And then now it's like, of course, same-sex couples can be married.
Well, I think, the interesting piece of this is for all of us to remember the places where we have had to learn
Mm-hmm.
and grow, and actually I was speaking with one of our guests coming up, and he was talking about the fact that he remembers, when we went into San Francisco to the gay bars,
Mm-hmm.
that they were all white men.
Yes.
But there was a Mexican bar and there was an Asian bar, and so there's a lot of bias
In every community.
everywhere
Yeah.
is my point, and sometimes people think, oh, well, here's a community and that means they're all in the same place, or they've all had the same experience, or whatever, and that doesn't make any sense. All of us have these unique experiences and various layers of in and being an insider and an outsider, and it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yes.
Coach Constance says sometimes it's a miracle to even remember anyone's name. It's so true. It's so true. And I think what's really important in this conversation is just that the openness to really be able to explore the topic, to be
Mhm.
able to ask, because we're really forging new ground here in all arenas, whether it's gay pride month type things or diversity month or any of that. And there's no pat answer.
Mm-mm.
And I mean, even if you ask two gay people,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? There's no, it's like there's no rules and you have to know all of them,
Mhm.
you know? And so it's just an amazing conversation. So Linda Goldsmith says, I'll confess, when I first started seeing they, I could feel myself do an exasperated eye roll. Now I understand more, but still have to read it more than once to truly get it. Worth it though.
Mhm. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Linda, for saying that. Yeah, absolutely. And I would just say be grateful that it's they, them, and not z, zer, and some of the other potential pronouns that were going to be used, and that may or may not actually gain traction. They, them is at least familiar in our vocabulary, but we do have to work with the grammatical things of it. And it's interesting. Someone recently came out to me as they, them, and I've known them as a particular gender. And I was texting someone else about a conversation with them and noticed that I had put all the old pronouns in. I put a couple of the right pronouns and then mostly kept putting in the old pronouns. And so I had to go back through my text message and change all the pronouns to they and to them. And it required me to be more present and aware of what I was doing. And so I think that's just, we just have to be present. We have certain unconscious ways of communicating and patterns, and it's about being more aware and being more sensitive. And sometimes we might be annoyed about if somebody wants us to be more aware or more sensitive. Just think about when your spouse or roommate or somebody asks you to do something different in the kitchen, or how you put your laundry away, and how annoying that might be to you at first, how resistant to making a change. And then realizing, hey, this is about having better relationships with other people. This is about really understanding other people on a
Do you know what
better
she's
level.
talking about? I have no clue what she's talking about. Do you? Do you?
Were you in our room last night?
Mhm.
And to that, I want to get to, because you wrote a fabulous book, It's Never Too Late to Be Yourself, right? And I think
Mhm.
that that's really
I
important,
think it's
because it's really bringing us all into just becoming more of who we are.
yeah.
And so can you speak a little bit about that? Because I
Yeah.
know that's
So
your passion.
sure. We mentioned the other books, Why You Should Give a Damn About Gay Marriage, and that was out there, and Love Warriors. And then I decided to write my first self-help book, which was It's Never Too Late to Be Yourself, Follow Your Inner Compass and Take Back Your Life. And because one of the things I realized being a therapist and being an activist is that we are all trying to be more of ourselves and come out of various closets and societal expectations and just live a life that honors our authentic callings.
Yeah.
And so it's never too late to be yourself is about reconnecting with your heart and finding ways to clear out the clutter in your life and your relationships, and to really be mindful about the life that you're living, and that it's whether you're coming out as a spiritual person or you're an artist, whatever you need to live a life that's more authentic. Maybe you want to stop drinking. Maybe you don't want to be this person that's in the business world that goes out and drinks, and being true to yourself is to change the events. And so when there's company get-togethers, you ask that there not be alcohol, or you don't go to those things because you're going to go do something else. Whatever it is about being true to yourself, setting boundaries, and also even finding work that is meaningful to you. Finding, if it's not paid work, volunteering, whatever it is that you're here to do, what your sole purpose is. That's what this book is about how to be more of yourself and to find other people that will support you in that. Because sometimes we either need to help people get on board with us in the new direction our life is going, or we need to set boundaries and limits with those people, or some people we just need to say goodbye to in this lifetime and say, you know what, we're really going in different directions. And if you're going to keep dragging me down, I need to set limits and not have you in my life.
Yeah. Very important.
So thank you, Constance, for your comments, liking the rules and loving the title of the book. Davina, do you have another book that you're working on right now?
I have another book that just came out last year. Sadly, it came out literally like on the day of the January 6th insurrection. And so,
wow, you have good timing, don't you?
I have incredible timing. Yeah. So that book is called The Mana Paradigm Shift, Creating a Consciousness of Freedom and Abundance. And it is based on the notion of manna from heaven, so that whatever we need, the divine gives us day by day, and how to be open and receptive to that, and how to stay out of what I'll call those being a slave in Egypt kinds of thoughts. Egypt is means narrow place in Hebrew. And there's a lot of ideas that the story of Exodus, of the Hebrews being enslaved in Egypt and then fleeing into the desert, that there's some metaphysical ways of interpreting what that means. And that part of it is staying out of thoughts of lack and scarcity and really leaning into spirit to guide you out of Egypt, out of enslavement and through the desert, and to get what you need day by day. So that one I would say is also self-help, but it is a deeply I think it's a deeply metaphysical book, and it's not denominational in any way, but it's definitely about connecting with spirit and finding ways to stay in that higher consciousness.
Well, thank you so much. As you can see, John Chastain says today's show is my manna from heaven. So thank you so much. And Dr. Davina, we didn't even touch on all that she does. She does workshops and webinars and things on resilience and self-expression and past regression. And you can look on her website and check out all that she does. She's an amazing human being and a fantastic friend. And we're so lucky to have you here. And
I'm very lucky that you're having me here. Thank you both.
Thank you.
So we just want to thank everyone for joining us today. What a great conversation. And we just encourage you to have these conversations, have them out in your communities and with people. And as I said, Dr. Davina is a great person to bring in if you need other facilitation or help. And there's other resources that you can be guided to. And it's so important. It's so important. This is what it's about, to rock the love. So thank you for joining us. And you know that you can find us at newthoughtmedianetwork.org. And if you're inclined to donate, we would love that. And we just want to thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, producer Michael Mangus. Thank you, Davina Kotulski. Thank you, Gil Olmsted.
Thank you, Robin Rice. And thank you, Coach Constance and Wayne and John and Linda and whoever else was out there that was hiding in the shadows and didn't tell us. We love you. Thank you.
Whoever watches in the future. And we'll see you back here next week on New Thought Media Network. And please rock the love.
Rock the love.